Okay, so everything is good, and I'm going to make Lupe the host now.
Okay, thank you so much, Chanel.
No
I appreciate
problem.
your time and energy. Welcome. I want to give a big welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is hosted by the Students with Disability Committee. However, the information that you will hear tonight is for many, for I would say citywide, for all families with students in the NYC public school and even some charters, and we will be giving information to those of you that have kids with K through 12. Before we get started, I would like to invite our interpreters to please provide a message to the community. We can start with the Spanish interpreter.
Good evening. The following information will be in Spanish. Thank you for having us here tonight. Buenas noches. Para quien desee escuchar esta reunión en español, haga favor de llamar al número telefónico 347-966-4114. Se le pedirá un número de identificación para la llamada. Este es el 890-256-490, seguido por la tecla numeral. Por favor, poner su micrófono apagado en modo silencioso o mute, y si gusta permanecer en la sala de Zoom lo puede hacer, por supuesto apagando los micrófonos en sus dispositivos. Una vez más, el número telefónico 347-966-4114. Número de identificación para la llamada 890-256-490, seguido por la tecla numeral. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
And I will now allow our Mandarin interpreter to give their introduction.
Good evening. The following announcement will be in Mandarin. 大家晚上好，需要拨打中文线的家长请拨actually, this is Mandarin interpreter speaking. I saw there are two phone lines to call in for the Mandarin line. Which one do you want them to call? Because in the chat, I saw two of them. So is the one ending like, because it's the same phone number, so which one is the actual passcode? Because in the chat, you post two of them.
Okay, for the Mandarin line, it is 2998W6.
Yeah, that's the passcode, but with the phone number, the audio dialing phone number, which one is it going to be? Because
it's 347-966-4114. I'm going to put it in the chat also.
I did, but the part I'm asking is the passcode for the phone line. Is it 9578 or is the one with 89025? Because you post two of them and one of them is cracked.
957.
No?
957.
Because the one I dialing is the one with 890. So
okay, so you can put you're in it right now, right? Put the one that you're in right now.
So just use the one I used right now.
Yep.
And don't read the other one, right? Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry there. 对不起，刚才有一点困惑，因为在这个线上的号码它书写了2个，所以今天晚上需要说中文的家长，请拨打电话347-966-4114，然后输入会议 ID 957846444井号键。再说一次，今天晚上需要说中文的家长，请拨打电话347-966-4114，然后输入会议 ID 957846444井号键，或者你可以直接使用会议 ID 296-393-232-047，然后输入会议密码 299AW6。再说一次，你可以输入会议 ID 在 Zoom 上面使用会议 ID 296-393-232-047，然后输入会议密码 299AW6。当你接通会议之后，请记得要关闭你在手机上的话筒或者是在电脑上的话筒，这样可以把背景噪音降到最小，不然没有办法工作。Thank you, I'm done. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. Welcome again for all of you that have come to join us. Like I said, we are hosting. I am Lupe Hernandez, the chair of the Students with Disability Committee. And although our committee is hosting this great informative workshop, it will apply to all parents with students that have children in kindergarten through 12th grade. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our co-facilitator for the evening, and we do have two. I'll introduce both of them. Michael D. Markowitz, who is a former CECD2 member here, and he will be going over the College Savings 101 and what every parent needs to know to start early in your college saving plans for your kids. And then we will follow with Jake Minicino, who is here from Everfi, and Everfi is a DOE partner that will be able to share with you some great scholarship opportunities and some even some classes and courses that the kids can take that will help them in the long run. So without further ado, Michael Markowitz, please go ahead and start. And I apologize for those of you, I have pinned my video. I cannot have video and camera or my audio and video on the same device. So my apologies, that is due to my own bandwidth in my area, but I've pinned my video. So hopefully those that are on Zoom can at least see that I am here. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Lupe. Good evening, everybody. I'm Michael Markowitz, and it's an honor to be with all of you tonight. Give me 1 second to play with your screens and put up the slideshow. And just to give you a little hint ahead of time, I'll be running my own slides and then handing it over to Jake to run his slides and then taking it back over, and I'll run the slides for Lupe. We actually have 3 different chapters tonight. So I'm not a total professional at doing this. Let me know if you could see the cover slide.
Yes, we are good. Everything looks great.
Okay, off we go then. All right, I will tell you all that out of respect to how much is on the agenda tonight, I will be skipping a lot of what you see on the screen. You're, of course, free to read it yourself, and we'll make the presentation available either as a link in the chat or we'll send it out to everybody after the meeting. So again, here's the 3 different parts of the meeting after the introduction. And let me skip through that. To submit questions on Zoom, as I've used it before, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. But Lupe, if you'd rather take questions differently when we get to the slide, however you want to handle that. Another thing that Lupe and I talked about ahead of time was just so we can get through a lot of material, we welcome your questions, but if you could hold them till the end of each module so each of the presenters can click through their slides, I think that will help the evening move along. So without further ado, let's dive into what I call College Savings 101. This presentation was originally given in slightly modified format to CEC2 in the village, sorry, Community Board 2, I got that switched. And we realized when we were doing it that it could have a much more impactful audience if we presented it directly to the parents. So the title I came up with is Introduction to 529 Plans and Federal FAFSA, and we'll explain what all that is. And out of deference to the CEC, who I'm very grateful, there's a little disclaimer in the bottom. And again, as Lupe said earlier, these are my perspectives, not anything vetted through the CEC. And in plain language, I'm not here to sell anything. I'm a parent and an MBA. I have 2 kids that came up through K-12 in District 2, and I just want to share some of what I learned the hard way. So we're going to pretend we're in a college class since we're saving for college, and here's the course outline. I'm going to make sure that for those of you who don't know the topic at all, we introduce it to you. And for people who have some familiarity, I'm calling you guys the grad students, we're going to make sure that you still are glad you were here and you learned something. So we're going to go through who, what, when, where, and why. Candidly, I'm going to skip very quickly over what a FAFSA form is. And then we're going to have a quick quiz and Q&A. So what is a 529 plan? Basically, a 529 plan is a provision of the federal IRS code under section 529 that allows every state to set up its own college savings plan. And the states have a lot of flexibility into what kind of tax breaks they give you for that. The only thing the feds say is to get that tax shelter, there's only some things you could use this money for: higher education tuition, room and board, and related expenses. That was the original concept back in, I should have the number right here on the screen, the 1990s, I believe, when the program was invented. And then in 2017, with the passage of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, everybody thought it was such a good idea, they expanded it to include K-12 tuition. So let's say anybody here in the audience is actually attending, or their kids attend a private school or parochial school, that's now eligible, but also apprenticeship programs. 529 savings could be used for student loan payments after your student graduates, and especially with an eye towards students with disabilities, you can save the money this way. We'll get into the advantages, and then roll it over to an ABLE account to provide necessary services for disabled students that aren't necessarily classroom. Again, as I said, the feds set this up, but the programs are each state specific, and there's quite a range there. So for the most part, we're going to assume that you're New Yorkers, and you can use this money to go to school anywhere in the country. I'm not sure about out of country, but some of the states have different breaks. New York's is actually pretty good. While that money is saved, you can have it invested in all different manner of investment funds, mutual funds, whatnot. We're not going to really get into that tonight. The important thing is the shell. The one thing I will note at the bottom of the slide here is there are age-based mutual funds for people who aren't financially savvy or don't want to put in the effort, that effectively let you take more risk when your child is younger, and the closer they get to needing the money, the fund will automatically shift it toward more cautious investments, so you don't, let's say, take a market dip at the last second. So I call this slide why, which is actually relatively straightforward. We talked about the different things you can use the money for, but from a financial point of view, it has three major kinds of benefits. One is, people can just go ahead and mute yourself if you're not me talking respectfully. Thank you so much. So from a financial point of view, there's three different categories of benefits. There's the compounding of interest. $1 turns into $1.05, turns into $1.12, turns into $1.20 when you just let it keep rolling along. But the big thing here is the tax benefits, and there's three different kinds of tax benefits already. There's a huge benefit for New Yorkers when you make the contributions. The growth inside the fund is tax-free on the federal income taxes also. And when you withdraw the money, or your student withdraws the money, it doesn't count as income to either the states or the feds. Now let me drill into that a little bit more. In New York, different than other states, you can contribute up to $5,000 per individual or $10,000 per couple. And that will deduct off of your New York State income. So if you're in a marginal tax bracket of, let's say, 12% for city and state taxes, as a couple or pair of guardians, saving $10,000 for your child every year will actually immediately get you a $1,200 reduction in your state taxes. There's no federal benefit for contributing, but the state benefit is huge. Again, there's a federal benefit as it grows when you pull it out. So not to get into it tonight, feel free to reach out to me on the side. There are huge benefits within this overall 529 program for estate taxes and gift taxes. In plain language, if your own parents or the child's grandparents have money they want to steer toward the child's college education, that's a whole nother category of benefits we're not going to get into tonight. But just the three for the typical parent or guardian, I say that compounding plus tax benefits is compounding the benefits. They actually build on each other. In plain English, in my own family's example, for every dollar that my wife and I saved toward our two kids in college, by the time they got into college, for every dollar we put in, the fund had $2. Half of that money was from the tax deductions and the internal growth of, let's say, the stock market. It's a money machine, virtually doubled our investment. Who can put in and who benefits? Now, to get the language in the same orientation as the 529 plans, typically the parent or the guardian is the participant who sets up the account. The child is the beneficiary, and the beneficiary could be someone of any age, but for our intents and purposes here, it's a newborn through a 12th grader entering college. But one of the other great things about this program is you can actually change who the beneficiary is. You can move the money around between siblings to cousins. Let's say, make it a little bit silly about me. Let's say my kids don't want to use all the money and I decide at age 65, I want to go back to school. Well, I can use it for myself also. It's extended out to cousins. And part of the reason for that is if the government's encouraging you to save the money, you shouldn't worry about losing it. So I started thinking about all the different ways that could actually be utilized. And one way, let's take my own two kids again. Let's say one went to a cheap school and one went to an expensive school. We can move the money from one kid to the other. The only hook there, and it's a real easy one, is you can't change the beneficiary of a given account except for once a year. You can't just keep juggling once a year, but that's fine. Again, in terms of contribution, anybody can contribute. Typically, it's parents. Typically, for some families that are lucky, it's also grandparents. But in terms of the way the law is actually set up, anybody can contribute to your child's college savings. And here's another great part. Each donor gets the same tax break. There's no limitation on how many people can get a tax break for donating to your child's college savings, which is frankly amazing. On withdrawals, just to keep the banking system organized, typically it's only the account holder who can make the withdrawal. Everybody could kick in, but the parent withdraws, and you can either have the withdrawal come straight back to yourself, like I reimburse myself when I have to pay the kids' college bills, or if you wanted, you could have the withdrawal money sent straight to the school and cut yourself out as the middleman. Just goes straight back to the school. When can you open an account? Pretty much as soon as the child is born. And in terms of being able to transfer the money, in a manner of speaking, you can actually start saving for kids that haven't even been born yet. Let's say my kids someday might have kids and they have money left over in their account. That money could end up sending a future grandchild I don't even have yet to college. The one thing about timing of when to make a contribution, obviously starting earlier, the better. But as we're approaching December, you can get the entire state income tax deduction for all of 2022 if, for example, you and your partner make that $10,000 donation on December 31st to get the tax break for the whole year. In terms of future years, depending how your jobs are going or Other bills in the family, you can wait up until the very last second to decide every December, okay, at the end of the year, here's how much we could sock aside. Or you can have it set up with most companies with direct deposit have a payroll tax, not tax, payroll deduction you can sign up for. So it just happens in the background. Candidly, my wife and I do a little bit of each, a couple of bucks out of every paycheck. And then at the end of the year, we bring it up to the full amount if we can, but we don't have to decide in January. We could wait till the very end. The withdrawals could be made anytime after the money is put in, and more importantly, anytime after the expense is incurred. So for example, if the stock market's doing great, I might wait another year or two to pay myself back for a bill my kid rang up last year. The punchline on this slide is the best time to contribute is yesterday, because of the compounding and the tax breaks. And then just from an MBA point of view, people who try to time the market, it's really impossible to guess next week, next month, next year, if it's going to be doing better or not. And some of the spikes historically in the stock market have been very sudden. You don't want to be on the sidelines the day the market does great. That all boils together into something that in business schools they call dollar cost averaging. You invest a little on a day when the market's great, a little on a day when the market's lousy. On the average, you're doing pretty well and you don't miss the spikes. Where? You can actually start one of these funds in any state. Some of the states run their own. Some they have a banking entity, but the state will endorse their use. Specific to New York, and in terms of our audience here, people in the New York City system, for the most part, there's three choices. There's NewYorkSaves.org, which is the New York State self-directed plan, which means, like in my case, you're on the website, once a month and handling it all yourself. In that NewYorkSaves.org, it's good for do-it-yourselfers. The funds are actually managed by the Vanguard company. There's also in New York State, you could choose to go with JP Morgan, where they manage your investment for you. So to run with our example, at the end of December, you give them a couple $1,000s and they just manage it for you. And that's, I think, with their own internal funds, but I'm not sure. And then the third choice, we'll hear about it more later tonight, is the New York City Rise Up. Actually, I think I've got that wrong. We'll come back to that. The New York City Internal Scholarship Fund. Last, if you know now, or let's say your child's in high school and has an idea of where they want to go to college, I know that in Michigan, if you use that money on a Michigan school, they also cut the tuition. There's actually an even better benefit there, but that's pretty rare. So here's the small print that I'm not going to read, and I'm not going to ask you to read on the screen, but I'll tell you what's there. In the left side is for the people we aren't going to talk about tonight, which is gift taxes and inheritance taxes. There's an upper limit on that for families that are very well off. It's not unlimited. But over on the right side, I'll just tell you what's in the different colored boxes. In the red box, as of January 18th, the money could be used for, excuse me, enrollment in K-12 programs, not just college. And then the green box goes into some detail about using the money to pay for, let's say, student loan payments or trade schools. And in the last box in purple is the detail that you can save money through the 529 program and then roll it over into an ABLE account, Achieving a Better Life. It doesn't have to be academic. These are care accounts for children or other family members with disabilities. It doesn't even have to be academic. Could be an aid, could be occupational therapy. It doesn't have to be straight academic. Tremendous flexibility to use this money machine. So I was thinking about cutting the slide, but I'll just tell you what's on it. Basically, even if your family you don't think is going to qualify for financial aid, when your child becomes a senior in high school, there's a form that's shared by all the universities called free application for federal student aid form. And you have to do it every year. And what I found out the hard way, actually it turned out to be a benefit. We've filled it out for our kids, not really thinking they were going to need financial aid, but maybe we'd take out loans. We didn't know. But because we were in the system, one of the schools offered one of my kids a partial scholarship. And we would have missed that bus if we hadn't filled out that form. So when your kids get to be the end of high school, even if you won the lottery, even if you're a lucky to be well-off family, fill out this form anyway. So a couple of links and contacts, and I'll just about be ready to give you guys your final exam. Here's some links for some of the things earlier. Again, don't write it down. We'll make this all available to you. Contacts, myself. In gaming terms, I'm player one and Lupe is boss level. There's our emails and our cell phones. Now it's time for the final exam. You can all just play along together. I'm using PDF, or this would on PowerPoint roll up one trick at a time. So I'm missing the audio visual trick. Why are they called 529 plans? IRS Code Section 529. Who? Students with educational expenses, but anyone can contribute. What? Tax advantage savings for all kinds of stuff. When? Earlier the better. Where? You have to make an informed decision about whether for your own home state or the state where you might want to go to school. And this is kind of a carryover from when a partner of mine who actually works down on Wall Street was the co-host. Who are these guys? We're just parents paying bills. And for real financial advice, we do suggest you speak to your own financial advisor. And for those of you who remember the ad campaign from years ago, we might not be Radio Shack, but if you got questions, hopefully we have answers. And with that, that's the placeholder for Jake, but let me get out of the screen sharing and return the microphone to Lupe and run a couple of minutes of Q&A.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for all that information. And just to address some much needed concerns in the chat, Ellen, I hear you, I feel you. For those that have been in CEC meetings, I hope you know I have been advocating for these meetings to be more accessible. I'm not sure why our Zoom account does not allow for closed captioning, but it's something I've complained about month to month. And to our deaf community, my apologies, because we did request an ASL interpreter for this evening, but we were denied. So, and I do understand the importance of accessibility for this information. And I know that closed captioning option is available on YouTube. However, that is not always a preference for our ASL community. So my apologies. And we are working on doing better. It is something that I am addressing with FACE, and that would be family and community engagement. Before we move on to questions and answers, I wanted to highlight something you talked about even with the FAFSA, Michael, was for those that are looking for the loan forgiveness, if that should, and we're hoping it should, go through. I know that the 40 million borrowers that have already had their applications not only accepted, but approved, and as soon as the court case is done, half of those applicants were actually students, current students that filled out that FAFSA, and it got the information to the Department of Education to get their loans forgiven immediately. And the other half of the applicants were those that are income-based repayment plan borrowers. So their tax information was already on file, and it actually helped even some current students, or it will hopefully in this near future. I will, if anyone wants to raise their hand, we'll go ahead and give you unmuting privileges. And I did see a good question in the chat about the 529s affecting the ability to apply for financial aid? Should they have a big pot that had been saving maybe since kindergarten or at an early age as a baby? Would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, that's a great question, by the way. I'm looking at the chat also, scrolled back. So I'm picking up at 732, the question to everyone. Does 529 negatively impact income vis-a-vis need-based scholarship? No, it does not. The way to look at it is needs-based scholarships, for the most part, there's some fuzz around the edges here, but for the most part, it looks at family income, not family savings or assets. That's the general way to look at it. So any money that you save for your child in a 529 investment will not hurt you when you apply on the basis of financial need, because that's tied to family income the year before you would need the money. Next question down is, are any of the three options equally eligible for the 10,000? Yes, they are. You get the tax break based on putting the money into a pot without regard to who is managing the pot, yourself, the JP Morgan or Vanguard. No difference there.
Can you ask that question again, just for our community on the interpreter line, since they're not able to see the chat? Yeah, no problem.
Or reading, talking, and thinking at the same time.
I know. I was going to say, you can even ask the question, reread it in a way that, however way you understood it. It doesn't have to be verbatim.
Sure. The question was, and to the interpreters and people listening to them, I apologize. Are any of the three options I described earlier, whether it's NewYorkSaves.org, JP Morgan, or Vanguard, are they equally eligible for the donation tax break? And the answer is yes, there's no difference. When you get around to picking which one, to me, it really comes down to how active you want to be and how much you just want to hand the money to the professionals. The next question from 734. My kids have two sets of grandparents, one set New York residents, one set New Jersey residents. I assume the New York grandparents get a tax benefit, but New Jersey do not. Also, if the New York grandparent contribute, does that reduce my New York state tax benefit? All right, let me do the second part first. Everybody who donates gets their own tax benefit. With respect to the person donating from New Jersey into a New York fund, I flat out don't know the answer to that. It really depends on New Jersey's state laws and how New Jersey provides comparable tax breaks to invest in 529 accounts. I just don't know the answer to that. But I know who would. If you want to text me or email me later, my partner who had a conflict and couldn't make it tonight knows all those kind of interstate games. And that was the last of the questions from the chat.
Yeah, are there anyone, if anyone would like to raise their hand, we are more than welcome to allow you to ask your questions live. And if not, we can move on to our next guest speaker presenter, Jake. I'll give it a minute.
Wait.
While we're waiting, Natasha.
Yeah, let's squeeze that
Natasha in the chat. She says, you mentioned rules vary by state. Is this for purposes saving, investing, or the state where the school is when withdrawing? Thank you.
That's a great question. And thank you for reading it, because it let me do some thinking. For the most part, the rules are oriented toward the saving process. The only one I'm aware of where you save the money impacts what you pay for college is Michigan. There's also, although I didn't have time to research it, but let me just mention, for families with limited incomes, there's an additional New York State program, and I apologize, I even forgot the name of it. And it was off of my mental radar because it wasn't about saving the money, but for more limited income families and students, there is a New York State program that provides direct assistance. So someday I actually need to make a second presentation for this, which is on college, which is not about how to save money for college, but then how to find an affordable college. And just the quick thought that comes to mind is the retail price isn't what parents should be looking at. It should be the net cost, net of loans, net of scholarships, and that varies all over the place. The risk of talking a little bit too much about myself and my family's situation, one kid got into a public school, one kid got into a private school with scholarships, and it nearly ended up that the private school ended up costing our family less, ironically. So being a careful shopper is huge, probably more important than the savings end, but you have to do both. Back to you, Lupe.
Yeah, thank you. And big shout outs to CUNY and even SUNY. I know the bill just passed. We're both, if you're a New York resident, as long as you want to stay in New York for the amount of time it takes you to finish one of those degrees. And they even expanded that free college tuition for part-time students as well. Before it used to be you had to be a full-time student. And if it took you 4 years to get that degree, you would commit to at least being remaining in New York for 4 years. But that has now been expanded to even the part-time students. And Jake, thank you for being so patient. I really appreciate it. And let me know you're good to go with your sharing, and welcome. Please introduce yourself and let us know all of these great resources that you have to share.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Jake. Thank you so much, first of all, to Lupe for inviting me to speak with you tonight about our resources and our scholarship opportunities. Thank you, Michael, for that very informative presentation. Even though we offer 529 college savings scholarships, I really didn't know much about them, so I learned a little bit from you this evening. If you have any questions, we will take them at the end. I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. I am in general a fast-talking native New York Italian, but especially for our interpreters, I will slow down a little bit. And you can, of course, in the chat, ask questions, and I will try to read those as we go along. So as we kind of go along here, what is Everfi? So to introduce you to Everfi, we are an educational technology company, and we provide free resources to your schools where your students are able to work on self-paced, auto-graded, and gamified courses online that help to prepare them for successful professional and personal lives in the 21st century. These resources that I'm going to introduce to you tonight are actually already available to your students at their school. So we can talk next steps after this, certainly, but that's something that I did want to make sure that you knew about. I also want to make sure that I highlight some accessibility briefly, as that, of course, is very relevant for you and your children. So at Everfi, we do prioritize accessibility. Lupe and I had a conversation earlier just about our resources and accessibility. We want to make sure that your students can access them and work on them. So this is just a little bit of information about our resources and the accessibility that we have. What's not included here on this slide is we do have resources. The majority of our resources are available in Spanish. That is the primary secondary language that we do have right now for students. We do have some select courses in French, but we are working on translating for other languages as soon as we can get to them. So we do want to make sure that these are accessible for all students and all learners at all levels. So just know that if there's ever an issue, we always bring it up to our product team to make sure that we can get that addressed. Here's a very quick and brief overview of all of the resources K through 12 that we have for students, from financial education, which is really what we're going to highlight today, STEM and career readiness, social and emotional learning, health and wellness, early academic readiness, and of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So one of the things that I wanted to mention about our resources, which is so great, is that we have scholarship opportunities attached to them. So unfortunately, the fall deadline just passed. It was December 2nd. However, we will have a spring opportunity for our $1,000 529 college savings scholarship. To be eligible, all students have to do is actually just complete a minimum 3 lessons of any course. And that's it. That's all they have to do to apply. This is a nationwide scholarship, so it is open to the millions of students across the US that explore EverFi resources. However, we gave away over $10,000 to $12,000 in scholarship awards last school year for New York City alone. So as I tell students all the time, you got to be in it to win it. So once you're able to work on these courses, you can go to the scholarship page and be able to apply. And it's very short. You have an opportunity, your students, this is specifically K to 12. So this is a K to 12 scholarship. This is our primary general scholarship. So you have that opportunity. And I wanted to make sure if I could put in the chat quick. This was just our page. I put in the chat. You can read more about our accessibility. So I wanted to put that in there for you. And then additionally, I'm going to put into the chat for you as well, the opportunity for you to see the scholarship too. So just so you have that. So I'm kind of going to go along and pull these for you as I get that chance. In addition to what we have with that, we of course have our financial education suite, our resources. So financial education at every stage. So we are a DOE partner. And of course, there's always different types of ed tech companies and other resources floating around, both paid and free, like ours. But EverFi is the leader in financial education. That is our bread and butter. That is what we are known for. That is what we have awards for. And so students from elementary through high school are able to learn more about financial education and saving. So these are some of the resources available across the board for your children. One of the ones I wanted to highlight is for middle school. It is called Future Smart. This resource and all of our resources are at no cost, mainly because our partnerships with companies and sports teams and banks. So the Mass Mutual Foundation is the sponsor behind Future Smart being free for your children to use. And this is a really great course where students actually get to be the mayor of their own city. They get to name their own city, pick their own avatar, their own name, and they help their town's residents with their financial problems and financial decision making for their personal lives, for their businesses. And so it's a really fun game for students. But what's really great about this course as well is the addition of the scholarship. There's a $2,000 to $5,000 scholarship that comes along with this course. The first deadline for it is actually upcoming. So there is time for students to work on this course. The first deadline is in January. Similar to the K-12 general scholarship, for students, they do have to work on Future Smart specifically, of course, for this, but they do have to complete a minimum of 3 lessons in this course to be eligible. But all of our courses, they're anywhere from 4 to 7 lessons in length, but they're also really brief. These are supplemental resources that teachers are able to use in the classroom or to assign for homework or extra credit. So they can be, depending on content and age level, your child could finish a lesson in 10 to 15 minutes, especially for a course like Future Smart. So they're not very time consuming at all, but they are very informative. So there are these opportunities for you. And I want to make sure that you can see that and you do have time to talk to your children about going ahead and applying. And for Future Smart, you kind of see there at the top, and I'll put the link in the chat for you. Future Smart has its own mini micro site. And on that site is also mini financial lessons for you, for parents and guardians, so you can actually learn more about financial topics. So that is another really great thing that we had in partnership with Mass Mutual, and that I hope that people take advantage of. I wish I had some of these resources when I was in school. Unfortunately, we didn't have that, and that's fine. It does happen. It is what it is. But I hope that you all are able to take advantage of them. I'm also going to put here in the chat, that is the general K-12 scholarship information that I am putting into the chat for you. And I am also putting into the chat the Future Smart information that you can look through as well. That website, for those who are English language learners or who speak multiple languages, you can actually toggle that website on for Spanish if you need that. Additionally, just wanted to highlight our high school financial wellness suite specifically. We have so many financial literacy resources for high school students. You can kind of see them all here. I'm actually missing one though, because we have a new course that just came out for cryptocurrency. So that course is going to debut, I believe, in January. So that will be new and it's very exciting. So we're definitely excited about that. But you can see here all of the options, and I will quickly just show you a few of them that I wanted to note. One is our most popular by far resource, EverFi Financial Literacy. 7 lessons, I would say probably 25 to 30 minutes each. For students, you can see the course topics on, we were talking about higher education, a lesson on financing your higher education, a lesson on insurance. So anything from auto insurance to home insurance, health insurance, life insurance, also talking about opening up a savings account, talking about budgeting. And one thing that I spoke about with Lupe earlier today was in our employment and taxes lesson, we have built in partnership with TurboTax, tax simulations. So your children are actually able to simulate doing taxes in this course. So that is really exciting. I am awful. I'm the last person you probably want to come to with tax questions. I am awful at doing them. I pay someone to do them every year. So Michael, if we're friends now, I think I'll probably be consulting you about doing my taxes. But it really gives students an opportunity to learn some really key things that, are so important for them to, do when they are adults. So if you especially start working when you're in high school, our employment information is so key for them as well. I do see some questions in the chat, and I'll get to those in a second, from Sarah and May. I also wanted to highlight, because I almost forgot about it, that in partnership with Intuit and TurboTax, we actually had a scholarship last school year that is returning soon for the spring, a $2,500 529 college savings gift card for students. I do want to note this was also a nationwide scholarship. Last school year, 40 awards were given out, but college students were actually eligible last school year when this happened. I think that will change this school year. But of those 40 awards last school year, only 7 were high school students. But of those 7 high school students, 3 were New York City high school students. There were 2 in the Bronx and 1 in Manhattan. So again, got to be in it to win it. So once this information becomes available, I will be able to share it with the district and with your child's school. Also want to highlight a very new course, Build Credit Fundamentals. So there is a lesson in EverFi Financial Literacy on credit, but this kind of expands on that. So letting students know what is credit, how do you build credit, what's the difference between a credit score, a credit report. This is a very brief course. Again, you can kind of see here, it's about 4 lessons, 10 to 12 minutes each. Again, all of our resources, they are self-paced online courses, so students can work as quickly or as slowly as they need to. And so that's something that is really great. And there's a scholarship attached to this course as well. So for any high school students who go ahead and complete Build, all 4 lessons in Build, they are able and eligible to apply for the $1,000 scholarship for Build. So that is open for students. And again, I will put here in the chat, I was about to direct message that. I will put here in the chat. OneMain Financial is the sponsor. OneMain is also available for any school that has students explore this course. The school can request that OneMain Financial do a financial literacy workshop with the students. So that is great as well. So wanted to let you know about that. And I see there are more questions, so I will get to that in just a sec. So to just kind of wrap this up. So again, this is OneMain Financial. And then wanted to note, I threw this in here, Pathways. We have our Financing Higher Education course. I went to art school for 6 years. I was in student loan debt for about a decade. This is my 1-year anniversary in paying off my student loans. So important. And again, our course topics focusing on understanding financial aid. So we do talk about FAFSA. Michael, you stole my line, FAFSA matter you. But it also talks about student loan basics, talks about work study, talks about private and government loans, talks about subsidized versus unsubsidized, and repaying your loans responsibly. So important to budget for your loan repayments. This is a really great course. And this course is actually sponsored for schools to use for free by Citizens Bank. Now, separate from the Pathways course, wanted to make sure I mentioned that Citizens Bank has its own scholarship opportunities on their website. And so students are able, seniors, you have to be a high school senior, and I will put in the chat. I'm going to just click on this here so I could bring it up. Apologies, I have like I said 8. I meant 80 different tabs open right now. So Citizens Bank, once you go to the website, you'll be able to see high school seniors can apply for the $2,500 college scholarship, and parents and guardians are able to apply for it as well. So that's what's really great about it. And because it's through the entire school year, the deadline is June 30th. Because it is a monthly drawing, if your child applies tonight for the December drawing, if they don't get it, their application automatically gets transferred into January, and then February and March and so on. So they don't have to reapply every month. You do it once and it gets forwarded along. So this is a really great opportunity. I'm saying things prematurely. Citizens Bank, we are supposed to do some type of a parent engagement event this year. Don't hold me to it though, but that is what we have been discussing. So I hope to be able to provide more information about that very soon. And in the meantime, here's my information. I will put in my email in the chat. Again, want to be mindful of time, so I will get right to the questions. I'll start with the questions in the chat, and then once we are done with the questions in the chat, anybody who wants to come off mute, feel free to let me know. So from Sarah asks, can a child only enter the Future Smart Scholarship to win once, or can they win money towards their 529 each semester if they participate sufficiently? So they can participate as many times as they'd like. So they can go ahead, sorry, shutting my phone off. If they apply for the January deadline and they don't get it, they can apply again. If they happen to win in January, does not mean that they can't apply again for the spring. Obviously, we do have internally, we have team members who review all applications, and it's an exhausting process. But you are able to apply, and at least for the general K-12 scholarship, for Future Smart at least, you can apply for the Future Smart scholarship through Future Smart, and also apply for the general K-12 $1,000 scholarship for Future Smart as well. Same thing for Build. You can apply for Build with the Build specific $1,000 scholarship, and you can apply for Build with the K-12 general scholarship. So there is no cap on applications. And for the general scholarship, as many courses as your child completes or completes a minimum of 3 lessons in, they can apply for as many courses as they did. So for the general K-12 scholarship, if your child completes, let's say, 3 different courses, you can submit 3 different applications. So that's not a problem. Again, if you take a look at that, I did put it in the chat, so I hope the link worked. When you take a look at the application itself, your child can select one of 3 different questions to answer. So they do have options with that. You can kind of play around to see which question kind of works best for what you're able to provide as an answer. And it's only a 500 maximum word count. So does not have to be very long at all. Just want to make sure that you address and answer the question that you're selecting. Apologies, it's dinner time over here, so the cat is screaming. Does my child have to enroll in Future Smart through the school? So pretty much Future Smart is available right now in every school here in New York City. So any teacher at the school is able to assign your child the opportunity or give your child access to Future Smart. What I would say is sometimes we're able to have the parent coordinator provide that school-wide, or sometimes teacher by teacher does that. Oftentimes, the way that these resources are implemented are during the school day, but I did mention sometimes if you just can't fit it into the school day, they'll be assigned for homework or they'll be assigned for after school. Our resources, by the way, are available for all after-school programs. I had a meeting with DYCD recently about that. I am actually a former Sonic program director, so all CBOs also have availability to provide access to these resources. And if you do have questions, though, about just, hey, my school is not using this resource, feel free to let me know. And I can try to find you a way to access that without doing it through the school. But primarily it is through the school. Natasha does ask, are there recommended age ranges for the courses? So yes, and that's really just because of the content and age appropriateness. And also all of our courses are standards aligned. So we do have standards alignment for our courses, primarily for state standards, national standards. Select subjects like STEM we do have for New York City or New York State. So that kind of varies, but we do, I think, as you may have seen, like here, Pathways, a grade level. So that's a recommendation, just kind of based off of our product team putting this course together. So Pathways is available at all high schools. If a middle school wants to use, a teacher at the school has to just request it from me. But as far as we do have certain resources that are, and I don't think any of them are here, Future Smart is specifically for middle school. We do have resources that overlap, such as you can see Vault grades 4 to 6, like that resource is used at elementary and middle schools. But just because it says 4 to 6 does not mean that teachers don't use it with their 3rd graders, or the 7th and 8th grade teachers don't use it with their students. So it really does depend. And we let teachers know, hey, you know your students better than we do. You can let us know if this is good to go. You can absolutely implement this resource. No problem, Sarah. I'm glad I was able to get to your question. Let's see. And I think I got all the questions in the chat. And I hope I didn't talk too fast. Lupe, feel free to let me know if you have any questions.
Yes. Having trouble unmuting myself. Okay. Bear with me one second.
No worries. And for everyone, I'm putting into the chat the Citizens Bank scholarship link so that you have that and you can take a look at it. And I'll also put in here my email. Generally, I don't think I've ever gotten an email from a parent because, I support the schools specifically, but feel free to throw me an email if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer.
I had a question, Jake. Thank you so much for that. With the build K through 12 courses, if a family wants to work on that at home outside of the school, is that an option, and how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so just for our courses in general, if you want to work on them at home, just kind of similar to, I think, what let me see, May was asking in the chat about enrolling in Future Smart, let's say through the school. Really just a matter of, requesting or maybe reaching out to the school if they're able to go ahead, and all of our resources are available through TeachHub. So for example, especially if your student uses their DOE email, so if they use their nycstudents.net email, they're able to access that pretty easily when a teacher makes that accessible. If not, we do have a secondary way for students to create an account to be able to do that. But I believe we have, we might have because I previously did a presentation with parent coordinators in District 4. We do have other options potentially for parents to be able to have their students, have their children access our resources without the school. So I just have to check on that website if that is still active, that website. But to be able to access it, students do need to have their nycstudents.net login for that specifically, for non-school related access.
Okay, and I'm going to take off. There must be some security not allowing people to unmute. So I'm going to take that off so that people can unmute themselves with no problem. I am working on getting you back into the interpreter line. I just messaged our AA who was unable to stay for the entire meeting, but she's working the interpreter line, and I sent her a message. Is there any?
My phone accidentally just automatically dropped, and I tried to call back in ever since, so it's not happening.
Nope. Okay, I will let her know. And then if you have access to the chat, she also gave her phone number for you to be able to possibly text her on the side if you need to. I will put it back in there in case you missed it. Any other questions from either interpreter line, Max or Rafael?
Hey, Natasha. So Natasha asks, how can we secure info on non-school access? So when I can double check to make sure that that access is still active or still valid for this school year, I will reach out to Lupe about the link for that to make sure that we can provide that information to everyone if you are interested. And Natasha, feel free to direct message me or email me to let me know what school your child or children attend, because I can automatically tell you whether or not your school is using EverFi resources. And if they are, making a connection there and seeing whether or not we can just get them easy access that way.
Okay. And Rafael, I apologize. Were you did you have a question in the line? Oh, we can't hear you.
This is Rafael, Spanish interpreter. I asked in the Spanish line if there was anybody with a question, but there was no reply. I
Okay,
asked them
thank
to
you.
unmute, but yeah, thank you.
Okay. And she?
This is the Mandarin line. I just asked. I don't think I got a response at all. Thank you.
Okay. She just got back into the Zoom, so I think she's working on it. Max, was there
Yes.
any questions on your interpreter line by chance?
No, we asked them no any further question from Mandarin 9. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I don't see any more in the chat. Was there anyone that would like to take themselves off mute? And you're more than welcome to ask. And if not, we will also move on to the NYC Kids Rise scholarship accounts that is going to be opening up automatically for our kindergarten and first grade students. So give that.
Thank you, Lupe. Thank you, everyone. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions.
Yes. Oh, and Michael, if you want to put that PowerPoint, feel free to, if you don't mind sharing it. I have no problem with you putting it in the chat. We will send it out to the community that was unable to make it to the live Zoom, or for anyone watching on YouTube. So, and welcome, NYC Kids Rise, the Save for College program. I was really excited about this initiative that was passed and just started last year. So that means all kindergartners as well as our first graders are eligible and can get one of these accounts. What is this account? And did you even know that your child was eligible for this scholarship account? Well, every kindergartner as well as every first grader this year will automatically be an account will automatically open for them unless you opt out, and you have until the end of this month. There's about a 30-day period in order for you to opt out, but we will get to that slide. I apologize, I'm not used to sticking to scripts. So the Save for College program is both a scholarship and a savings program. It brings schools, families, and communities across the city together to invest and save in for your children's college and career training. This school year, all kindergartners and first graders attending a New York City public school, including a few participating charter schools, are eligible to participate. Students are eligible regardless of income or immigration status. The one exception is to note that because the program is piloted or was piloted in a geographic that was District 30, I believe, back in 2017, every student in kindergarten through fifth grade in that particular district is also eligible to participate. So keep that in mind. And we'll talk about, as the grade spans progress, how incoming students of the grades will be eligible for these accounts, regardless of them coming in as a kindergartner or first grader in these past 2 years. So last year was the first year the program expanded citywide. Again, that pilot started with District 30. And so last year, every kindergartner got these accounts, and they had till that previous December to be able to opt out of that account. This year, it's every first grader in kindergarten. The program is available to all families citywide, as long as you're entered into a public school. And that opt-out option, I think it's here. Yeah, first to fifth graders, that's correct, on the District 30. So we can go to the next screen. I apologize. I'm moving kind of fast just due to time. Yes, there we go. So it is a scholarship account. And it's a scholarship account that the DOE and NYC will be managing and operating. You don't have to do anything. If you don't opt out, then this account is automatically open with a deposit of $100. You will get information from your parent coordinators or your teacher or your school on how to activate the account. Activating this account is the first step. You'll actually get an additional $25 just by finishing this step. And this, although I apologize, the previous the previous slide did show how you could actually connect the NYC Kids Rise, there we go, the NYC Scholarship account. You can actually connect it should you have already had a 529 open for this particular child, or if your parents ever open one, or if you're, in the future, if you ever decide to open one, you are able to connect that 529 account to the NYC Kids Rise Scholarship account, and they will also match dollar for dollar up to $100, whatever you put in from that 529. So that is a total, that's already $200. If you start off, if you were to throw in matching 100, that's $200. And then we can go to the next slide, where once you activate this account, you're getting another $25. The contributions from grandparents, as Michael was telling us before, you can have contributions from family, friends. In fact, I have family members that have opted out of gifts for their kids for many years, and instead they give them a link to their college savings account and say, hey, just contribute in there from time to time. And let's see, the savings, it will, just like the 529 plans, it's going to be gaining interest, and it's tax-free. Families can also choose other options, including savings accounts through the Amalgamated Bank, which I was not very familiar with, but we can have NYC Kids Rise definitely explain a little bit more about that. I was going to ask Michael if maybe he knew what that bank was, because I was not familiar, but it's in addition to the 529. So you can link up. We are working, or they are working, I should say. The DOE is working on being able to connect, and hopefully by spring of 2023, because I was very concerned about some of our community that may not be eligible for 529s and have the ABLES account. And so the ABLE account, we're hoping to be able to connect that to this scholarship account as well by spring of 2023. Next slide. So activating, there's a little roadmap of what we can do. We're saving for college. There's career training that we've picked up on. We've learned about FAFSAs. Now with our early savings starting now, your child automatically gets the $100 when the account is open. Once you activate it, and that takes you knowing your OSIS number, and that is never shared within the Vista Share. That information is scrambled and decoded or encoded so that the personal information of your child's student ID is not shared. Building block 1, that's the activating, and you'll need that OSIS count, but once you activate it, you get an additional $25. The building block, that's if you were to open your own college savings account or the 529s, and if you connect them, then you'll get an additional $25. And after you make your first deposit of $5 or more, you'll receive an additional $25. So just based on the roadmap, this alone is about $175. And the savings together, when we match, and that's the fourth one, when your family or your friends, when they put into that 529, they will match up to $100. So a total of $275 already saved just by following these few steps, and a lifelong opportunity for our kids in the future. Next slide. Thank you. Super easy. If you guys want, you can click on the QR code or use your phone, and then we'll be putting all of this info in the chat. And it's really easy to do. I think the most important part of why we wanted to share this information is knowing that you could be assured that you have started something for your child that's going to benefit them in the future. And we understand, especially coming from the Students with Disability Committee, that not all of these accounts are available. And so we will be doing this again when we have the ABLE Trust involved, and because that in itself is like a huge workshop that we have done in the past, and it differs in many ways to the information shared tonight. I think that's might be the last slide. I'm not too sure. What if you need help? Yes, your school parent coordinator is the best person to help in this instance. So if you're a kindergarten, first grade parent, and you have not heard about this, I really recommend that you reach out to your parent coordinator, reach out to your teacher. They should be able to give you the information. Now, if you know that you want the account, you don't have to do anything and you won't receive anything until January. If you are unsure and you would like to speak to your parent coordinator, they can give you the steps of opting out. And if you opt out, it's never too late for you to come back in. As I said, as the grade spans progress, meaning this year's kindergartners, when they're in 5th grade, the incoming 5th grader would be able to still qualify and be eligible to have one of these scholarship accounts open up for them and receive that $100 and receive the same journey pathway to receiving the additional funds. And I thought it was really cool that we were able to bring in other scholarship opportunities from EverFi, because I had no idea that these opportunities existed, and it seemed really fun, something that kids like to do. They're online a lot anyway, and why not have them at least exploring and learning, especially lifelong skills like financial literacy and insurance literacy. I mean, all of those things are, I believe, something that should be taught in school, and they're not, but your kids have an opportunity to learn, as well as opportunity to possibly earn some scholarship funds for their future. If you have any questions, they have a really great team. They were very responsive to my questions, and they have a hotline. They are willing to walk you through whatever process you may need, but a lot of it is pretty, what I loved about it is the fact that it is pretty automatic. So once you get the confirmation that the account has been created, they should give you information on how to activate that account. I see a question from, okay, I want to make sure I go to the front. Natasha, how can we secure info in non-school? Oh, that was previous. Okay, it was mentioned this program started last year. If my child was in 1st grade last year, are we eligible? Unfortunately, unless you were in District 30, I don't believe so. Last year's kindergartners were the first kindergarten class to receive the scholarship accounts. And those kindergartners are now in 1st grade this year. And that is why it is the kindergartners of this year and the 1st graders of this year that are eligible for these accounts. Why might some families want to opt out? Just curious. I was wondering the same thing. And the only thing I can think of, and forgive me, Michael, I don't know if you have access to the specific information that is shared on the Vista share. I think I sent that to you last night. If you could just pull that up. Oh, excuse me. So sorry. Bear with me. My husband just turned the light off. It's in the room.
Lupe,
Okay.
Go ahead and jump ahead to another question. I'll go get the email and have it ready to throw on the screen.
Yeah, I can explain though. Let me so I would think it's privacy concerns of what information was shared, and I actually went into great detail with the program directors and some members of their board, in assuring the privacy of the information. In fact, I specifically asked about social securities and bank financials of your own personal, if you were to connect that 529 or different college savings to the Kids Rise scholarship account. And she assured me that zero of that information is given. There's no social security required for this scholarship account. In fact, if you remember, I told you that it is eligible to all students regardless of immigration status. And so as long as you're in a public school, the information that is shared is the basic information that you fill out on the blue card. That would be the name and the address of where you live and the, I believe, the school that your child goes to. And aside from that, no other information. And I could be wrong about the school. It's possible that the school is not on there. So bear with me. I can look that up. But that was the only thing that I saw was the reason why someone would want to opt out. And so they put, in fact, under the link of opt out, it specifically is saying, this is the information that is shared if you want to opt out of sharing this information. And that's the way they pose it. You may opt out of the program. And it is asked, can you opt out of sharing the information and still remain in the program? Unfortunately, that was not, that is not the case. So it's the students, it's a unique identification number to the program, meaning they're not going to see your student's OASIS number. So they will get the full name, their birthday, the home address. If you move and you notify the DOE, then it will also change in the system. So a home phone number, should you have one and provide it, it's really what you provide on that blue card. They do have the school name and the current grade level, and I guess they need that for eligibility purposes. Languages spoken at home, and that's just for purposes intended to notify you of your activation processes and instructions so that they can communicate in the language that you prefer. And if you are transferred to another school, both inside and outside of New York City's public school system. Should you leave New York City, the account does not go away. You still have access to it. It does not close, but if you were to move into the city, and to your question earlier, Natasha, about, so if someone was to move into the city later this year and they enroll one of their children either in kindergarten or first grade, they are still eligible for this account, and an account it will take some time, but once the system kicks in, and it will automatically set up. And you can ask your parent coordinator. I'm sure they may reach out to you and give you an opt-out timeline, and I believe it's typically 30 days. But if you don't opt out, then the account will automatically be open for the student, and then you would just have to activate it. Do we have any other questions? Well, I thank you guys for your time, and I hope that we were able to provide some great information for you. And there's no time other than now than looking to the future, and it's never too early to start thinking and saving up for the college or whatever after school may bring. So I appreciate your guys' time and energy. Thank you. Thank you to our interpreters. Is there anyone on the interpreter line that may have any questions?
No questions on the Spanish line.
Okay. No problem, Michael. That's fine.
There's no parents wanted to ask a question on the Mandarin line.
Thank you very much. I want to address our students with disabilities community. Please come to our next calendar meeting on December 13th at 6:30. I will be presenting a resolution regarding our transportation. So, and we're always here if you are having busing, school bus, or even MetroCard issues. As we've heard, even MetroCards have become very scarce. And we want to remind parents of students in temporary housing or transitional housing that you too are eligible for a MetroCard to make sure to ensure to get you and your child to school. And we will be having, I will let you know when the next Student with Disability Committee meeting will be, but thank you for joining us this evening. And thank you, Michael, and thank you, Jake, very much. We appreciate you. Let's stop recording.